The morning sun peeked through the thin curtains of Mia's small apartment. She rolled over, squinting at her phone. 5:30 a.m. With a deep breath, she swung her legs over the side of the bed, careful not to wake her grandmother sleeping in the room next door. The floorboards creaked as Mia tiptoed to the bathroom. In the mirror, dark circles framed her eyes, souvenirs from last night's study session after her late shift at the diner. She splashed cold water on her face and pulled her long dark hair into a neat ponytail. No time for anything fancy today. Another day, another dollar, she whispered to herself, a saying her grandmother had taught her. In the kitchen, Mia prepared a simple breakfast for her grandmother and left a note. Pills are on the counter with your tea. Back by 4 to take you to the doctor. Love you, Mia. She grabbed her worn backpack containing her nursing textbook, a half-eaten sandwich from yesterday, and her Café Lumière uniform. The bus was already at the stop when she rounded the corner, and she had to run, her second-hand sneakers slapping against the pavement. Made it, she panted to the driver, who gave her a knowing smile. They'd performed this same dance almost every morning for the past 2 years. Café Lumière sat on the corner of 5th and Pine, not quite in the fancy part of town but close enough to attract a diverse clientele. The morning rush was already in full swing when Mia slipped through the back door at 6:45 a.m. Cutting it close today, Rodriguez, called out Hank, the cook, his voice gruff but his eyes kind. Bus was early, Mia replied, tying her apron around her waist. Any special requests for the breakfast club? This was their nickname for the regulars who came in every morning, mostly office workers and a few retirees who appreciated the cafe's strong coffee and Hank's famous blueberry pancakes. Mrs. Wilson wants her eggs less runny than yesterday but not too firm. Hank mimicked the elderly woman's particular way of ordering, and Mr. Lee already called to make sure we saved him the corner booth. Mia nodded, mentally preparing for the day ahead. 8 hours here, then 3 hours at the library studying for her nursing exam, followed by her evening shift at the pharmacy. Somewhere in between, she needed to take her grandmother to her monthly checkup. The morning passed in a blur of coffee refills, breakfast orders, and friendly chatter with the regulars. Mia moved efficiently between tables, her smile never faltering, despite the growing ache in her feet. Each tip she received went straight into the small notebook she kept in her apron pocket. $1.50 from table 3, $2.75 from the businessman at the counter, $5 from the kind family who came in every Tuesday. Every dollar counted. By noon, the breakfast crowd had thinned out, and the lunch rush hadn't yet begun. Mia took advantage of the lull to rest her feet for a moment and sip some water in the back room. Your section's filling up again, called Rosa, the hostess, poking her head through the door. Just seated a fancy-looking lady at table 7. Looks like she stepped out of one of those fashion magazines. Mia nodded, tucking a stray hair behind her ear before heading back out. Table 7 was in the corner, partially hidden by a decorative plant. The woman sitting there indeed looked out of place in the humble cafe. Her cream-colored suit probably cost more than Mia's monthly rent, and the wedding ring on her finger caught the light with every slight movement of her hand. Good afternoon, welcome to Café Lumière. My name is Mia and I'll be taking care of you today, she said with a warm smile. Can I start you off with something to drink? The woman looked up, her face tense. Just water for now, please. I need a minute with the menu. As Mia turned to get the water, she noticed the woman's hands trembling slightly as she opened her designer handbag. Something was off. When Mia returned with the water, the woman was frantically searching through her bag, items spilling onto the table. Makeup, a small notebook, a set of keys, but apparently not what she was looking for. Everything okay? Mia asked gently. The woman looked up, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I can't find my wallet. I thought it was in my bag, but... She pulled out her phone, only to discover it was dead. And my phone needs charging. I was supposed to meet my husband here, but he must be running late. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm so sorry to trouble you. Mia recognized the look in the woman's eyes, a mixture of embarrassment and panic. She'd felt it herself many times when bills piled up or when her grandmother's medication costs unexpectedly increased. It happens to everyone, Mia said softly, setting down the water. Take your time. No rush at all. I'll check back in a few minutes. As Mia moved to her other tables, she kept an eye on the elegant woman, who was now searching through her bag for the third time, becoming increasingly distressed. Near the entrance, a man in a perfectly tailored suit entered the cafe. He was, tall with salt and pepper hair and carried himself with the confidence of someone used to being in charge. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on the woman at table 7. But instead of approaching her, he paused, watching from a distance, as Mia returned to the table. Any luck? Mia asked the woman, who shook her head. I'm Elizabeth, the woman said, her voice quiet. I don't know what to do. I can't pay for anything, and I can't call my husband. Mia glanced around the cafe. It wasn't too busy, and Hank always made extra food for the staff. Would you like to order something while you wait? Don't worry about it. Elizabeth looked up, surprised. I couldn't possibly. Everyone has rough days, Mia said with a genuine smile. I'd want someone to do the same for me. Elizabeth hesitated, before nodding. Just a small salad, if that's okay. And maybe I could borrow your phone to call my husband? Of course, Mia said, pulling her old phone from her pocket. It's not the newest model, but it works. Elizabeth took the phone gratefully. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means. From his position near the entrance, the man, James Chen, tech billionaire and Elizabeth's husband, watched this exchange with growing interest. He had planned to surprise his wife for lunch after her charity meeting, but now found himself witnessing something unexpected. As Elizabeth made the call, which would go to voicemail since James was standing in the cafe, Mia went to place the order. When she passed by Hank, she quietly asked, Can you make a garden salad? It's for a customer who forgot her wallet. Hank raised an eyebrow. You covering it again? That's the 3rd time this month, Mia. You can't keep paying for other people when you're barely making ends meet yourself. Mia shrugged. She's having a rough day. Besides, it's just a salad. What Mia didn't say was that covering the meal would mean skipping her own lunch today. The $20 in her pocket was meant for her grandmother's prescription copay, and the tips she'd earned so far would barely cover the bus fare to the doctor's office. James watched as Mia returned with a fresh glass of water and her phone. He didn't answer, but I left a message, Elizabeth said, returning the phone. Thank you again. No problem at all. Your salad will be out shortly. As Mia turned to check on her other tables, James noticed how she subtly rolled her shoulders to ease the tension there. Despite her obvious fatigue, her smile remained genuine for every customer she greeted. Elizabeth sat alone, her composure regained but embarrassment still evident in her posture. James decided to wait a little longer before approaching. Something about the waitress's kindness had caught his attention, not the practiced courtesy of someone hoping for a good tip, but genuine compassion. When Mia brought the salad to Elizabeth, she included a slice of the cafe's famous lemon cake. On the house, she said with a wink. Sweet things help on tough days. Elizabeth's eyes welled up. You're too kind. I promise I'll come back and make this right. No need, Mia insisted. Just pay it forward someday. James Chen stood by the entrance watching this simple interaction that would soon change multiple lives forever. In a world where he was accustomed to people wanting something from him, here was someone giving without any expectation of return. And in that moment, an idea began to form, one that would transform not just the kind waitress's life, but his own perspective on wealth and what it truly meant to make a difference. Elizabeth savored the last bite of lemon cake, surprised by how much comfort she found in the simple dessert. She dabbed the corners of her mouth with a napkin and looked up to find Mia checking on a nearby table. There was something about the young waitress that touched her, a genuine warmth that felt increasingly rare in Elizabeth's world of charity galas and business dinners. Meanwhile, James continued to observe from his discreet spot near the entrance. Years of business negotiations had taught him to read people, and everything about this waitress intrigued him. She moved with purpose despite her obvious exhaustion, and her smile never wavered, even when a customer at table 4 sent back his order twice. As Elizabeth finished her meal, Mia approached with a gentle smile. "How was everything?" "Wonderful," Elizabeth replied. "I can't thank you enough for your kindness today." Mia waved away the thanks. "Really, it's nothing. We all need help sometimes." Elizabeth glanced at her phone, which Mia had helped charge, behind the counter. "My husband should be here any minute. I'll make sure to cover the meal then." "Please don't worry about it," Mia insisted, her voice low enough that nearby tables couldn't hear. She slipped a small receipt into her apron pocket. The $14.75 she had just paid for Elizabeth's meal. It was nearly 2 hours of work after taxes, but something about the woman's genuine embarrassment had touched her. James watched as Mia discreetly handled the transaction at the register, pulling out her own worn wallet. From where he stood, he could see her pause briefly, a flash of worry crossing her face as she looked at the remaining bills. She hesitated for just a moment before handing over her card to the cashier. That small moment of hesitation told James everything. The meal she had just covered wasn't insignificant to her budget, yet she had done it without fanfare or expectation. As Mia returned to check on her other tables, James finally approached Elizabeth, who brightened at the sight of him. "James, there you are. My phone died and I couldn't reach you. You won't believe what happened. I left my wallet in the car from the charity meeting and this wonderful waitress." "I saw," James said quietly, sitting down across from his wife. "I've been here for a while watching." Elizabeth tilted her head, puzzled. "Watching? Why didn't you come over?" James's eyes followed Mia as she cleared a table across the room. "I was interested in seeing how things would play out when you couldn't pay. Most people would have called a manager or made you feel embarrassed." "She did the opposite," Elizabeth said, her voice warm with admiration. "She paid for my meal herself. I saw her do it when she thought I wasn't looking." James nodded thoughtfully. "Did she mention anything about herself?" "A little," Elizabeth replied. "When I apologized for taking up her table with a non-paying customer, she told me not to worry because she understood tough situations. She's putting herself through nursing school to help people like her grandmother, who raised her after her parents died." This information settled into James's mind, fitting perfectly with what he had observed. "I'd like to speak with the manager before we leave." Alarm flashed across Elizabeth's face. "You're not going to get her in trouble, are you? For giving away food?" James reached across the table and took his wife's hand. After 15 years of marriage, she still sometimes misunderstood his intentions. Quite the opposite. When they stood to leave, James approached the counter where an older man with a name tag reading Pete, manager, was reviewing receipts. "Excuse me," James said. "I'd like to speak with you about one of your waitstaff." "Mia." Pete looked up, instantly defensive. "Is there a problem? Mia's one of our best." "No problem at all," James assured him. "In fact, I'd like to leave something for her." He pulled out his wallet and extracted several large bills. "Please make sure she gets this as a tip, and I'd appreciate if you didn't mention who it came from." Pete's eyes widened at the amount. "Sir, this is very generous, but she helped my wife today in a way that went far beyond her job," James explained. "I'd also like to give you my card. Please don't share it with Mia, but I'd appreciate a call if she ever needs anything or if her situation changes." Outside the cafe, Elizabeth looped her arm through her husband's as they walked toward their waiting car. "That was quite a tip you left her." "It's not enough," James said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Not nearly enough." Elizabeth studied her husband's face. In their years together, she had seen many expressions cross his features. Determination, when facing business challenges, joy on their wedding day, grief when his father passed. But this look was new, a quiet thoughtfulness that suggested his mind was racing with possibilities. "You're planning something," she said. It wasn't a question. James nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but I need more information first." Back inside the cafe, Mia was clearing Elizabeth's table when Pete approached, his face unreadable. "Everything okay, Pete?" she asked, balancing dishes on her arm. "The couple from this table left you this." he said, handing her an envelope. Said it was a thank you for taking good care of them. Mia set down her tray and opened the envelope. Her eyes widened and her hand flew to her mouth. There's some mistake. This can't be for me. Pete shook his head. No mistake. The man was very clear it was for you specifically. Mia stared at the amount, her hands trembling slightly. It was more than she made in 2 weeks. With this, she could pay her grandmother's overdue medical bills and still have enough for next month's rent. Did they say their names? She asked, still stunned. Nope, just that you helped them today. Must have been pretty impressive, whatever you did. For the rest of her shift, Mia moved through the cafe in a daze. The unexpected windfall felt like a miracle, but something about it also made her uneasy. She had never wanted charity, just a fair chance. Her grandmother had raised her to believe that hard work and kindness would eventually be rewarded, but life had taught her that the path was rarely so straightforward. As she wiped down her last table before clocking out, she made a decision. She would use half the money for her grandmother's medical bills, but the rest would go into her education fund. The best way to honor this unexpected gift was to work even harder toward her goal of becoming a nurse. Across town, in his sleek, downtown office, James Chen sat behind a vast desk made of sustainable bamboo. The wall of windows behind him offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, but his attention was focused on his computer screen. Daniel, he said, addressing his chief of staff who sat across from him. I need you to find out everything you can about a waitress named Mia who works at Café Lumiere on 5th and Pine. Be discreet. I don't want her to know we're looking into her background. Daniel, accustomed to his boss's occasional unusual requests, nodded without question. Any particular information you're looking for? Everything, James replied. Where she lives, her education, her family situation. I'm particularly interested in her grandmother's medical condition and their financial circumstances. May I ask why, sir? James leaned back in his chair, considering how to explain the feeling that had taken root in him while watching Mia in the cafe. Let's just say I witnessed something rare today. Genuine kindness with no expectation of return. In my experience, that's worth investigating further. Daniel made a note in his tablet. I'll have preliminary information for you by tomorrow morning. After Daniel left, James swiveled his chair to face the windows. The city spread out below him, millions of lives unfolding in countless directions. As the founder and CEO of Chen Technologies, he had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. His charitable foundation donated millions each year to causes around the world. But watching Mia today, seeing her give so freely from the little she had stirred something in him. The disparity between her sacrifice and his own carefully managed philanthropy felt suddenly stark. The intercom on his desk buzzed. Mr. Chen, your 3 o'clock is waiting. James turned back to his desk. Send them in. But as he prepared to shift his attention to the upcoming meeting, a part of his mind remained fixed on the waitress with the kind eyes and generous spirit. That evening, Mia helped her grandmother into bed, carefully adjusting the pillows behind her back. You're smiling more than usual tonight, her grandmother observed, her wise eyes missing nothing despite her failing health. Something good happen at work? Mia sat on the edge of the bed. Actually, yes. A customer left me a really big tip today. Enough to cover your medicine and put something aside. Her grandmother reached out to pat Mia's hand. See? I always told you kindness comes back around. You did, Mia agreed. Though she didn't mention that for every act of kindness that was rewarded, dozens went unnoticed. Still, today's unexpected blessing felt significant, as if something important had shifted in her world. Later, as she spread her textbooks across the small kitchen table to study for her upcoming exam, Mia found herself wondering about the couple from the cafe. Who were they, and why had they been so generous? The woman, Elizabeth, had seemed nice enough, but nothing about her suggested she was the type to leave such an extravagant tip. Her thoughts were interrupted by her phone buzzing with a text from Rosa, the cafe hostess. Pete's looking for someone to cover morning shift tomorrow. Double pay. Interested? Mia quickly replied yes. With her current financial situation, she couldn't afford to turn down extra hours, no matter how tired she was. She returned to her studying with renewed determination, unaware that across town a billionaire was setting in motion plans that would soon change her life forever. Morning light filtered through the blinds of James Chen's home office as he reviewed the file his chief of staff had prepared. After 3 days of discreet investigation, the picture of Mia Rodriguez's life was both impressive and heartbreaking. 26 years old, James murmured, flipping through the pages. Parents died in a car accident when she was 12. Raised by her grandmother, Maria Rodriguez, now 74 with advancing heart disease and diabetes. Daniel nodded from the chair across the desk. She works 2 jobs, the cafe 5 days a week and weekend shifts at Corner Pharmacy. Full-time nursing student with a 3.8 GPA, despite her schedule. Lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Oakwood district. Grandmother takes the bedroom. She sleeps on a pull-out couch. James studied a photograph taken discreetly outside the cafe. Mia rushing to catch her bus, textbook clutched to her chest, exhaustion evident even from a distance. What about her finances, he asked. Daniel grimaced. Not good. Student loans totaling $42,000 so far. Rent is $950 monthly, barely affordable for that neighborhood. Her grandmother's medical expenses run about $1,200 monthly even with Medicare. Between the 2 jobs, Mia makes roughly $2,400 a month. The math doesn't add up, especially with food, transportation, and school expenses. James frowned. How is she managing? From what we can tell, she hasn't taken a day off in over a year. She's behind on her electricity bill and has pawned several items recently. A laptop, her mother's watch. The building manager mentioned she sometimes pays rent in installments. Elizabeth entered the office carrying a tray with coffee. She set it down and peered over her husband's shoulder at the file. Is that her? The waitress? James nodded, accepting the coffee with a grateful smile. Mia Rodriguez. Remember how you mentioned she's studying nursing to help her grandmother? Turns out that's just the tip of the iceberg. Elizabeth scanned the report, her expression softening. James, she's barely keeping her head above water. And yet, James said thoughtfully, when faced with someone she thought needed help, her instinct was to give from the little she had. They fell silent, both thinking about the stark contrast between Mia's life and their own. Their weekend home in the Hamptons cost more than Mia would likely earn in her lifetime. So, what are you thinking? Elizabeth finally asked, recognizing the look on her husband's face, the same expression he wore before making a major business decision. James leaned back in his chair. I'm thinking about effective altruism. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Sir? We donate millions each year through the foundation, James explained. But most of it goes to large institutions, research grants, and established charities. The impact gets diluted. What if we tried something more direct? Elizabeth's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to help her specifically. I want to remove the obstacles preventing her from reaching her potential, James corrected. Not charity, investment. An investment in someone who clearly has extraordinary character and work ethic, but lacks resources. Daniel looked skeptical. With respect, sir, is this the best use of your time and resources? There are thousands of struggling students in this city alone. True, James acknowledged. But we encountered this one, and sometimes the most meaningful impact happens one person at a time. He turned to his wife. What do you think? Elizabeth didn't hesitate. I think it's the best idea you've had in years. Across town, Mia slumped into a chair in the hospital waiting room, fighting to keep her eyes open. Her grandmother's routine checkup had turned into a 4-hour ordeal when the doctor discovered her blood pressure was dangerously high. Miss Rodriguez? A nurse appeared in the doorway. Your grandmother is ready to go home now. The doctor has adjusted her medication. Mia nodded, gathering her backpack. Is she okay? The nurse's hesitation was brief but noticeable. Dr. Patel would like to speak with you before you leave. In the small examination room, her grandmother looked smaller, than usual against the white sheets, her face tired but smiling as always. "Don't look so worried, Mikita," she said, patting Mia's hand. "I'm not going anywhere yet." Dr. Patel, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, entered with a tablet in hand. "Mia, we need to discuss your grandmother's condition. Her heart isn't responding to the current medication as well as we'd hoped. There's a newer treatment that would be more effective, but—" She hesitated. "But it's expensive," Mia finished for her, already calculating in her head. "How expensive?" "The medication alone would be about $600 monthly, even with insurance. And ideally she should be seeing a specialist." Mia's stomach tightened. $600. Where would she find an extra $600 every month? "We'll figure it out," she said with more confidence than she felt. "Can you write the prescription and I'll see what I can do?" On the bus ride home, her grandmother dozed against her shoulder while Mia stared out the window, mentally reshuffling their finances. She could pick up more hours at the pharmacy, maybe, or look for a better-paying weekend job. Sleep was overrated anyway, she told herself with grim humor. Her phone buzzed with a text from Pete, the cafe manager. "Need to talk to you before your shift tomorrow. Nothing bad. Actually might be good news." Mia frowned at the cryptic message, but was too tired to puzzle over it. Good news would be welcome, whatever it was. The next morning, Mia arrived at Café Lumière 30 minutes early for her meeting with Pete. She found him in his tiny office, sorting through invoices. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, stifling a yawn. Pete gestured for her to sit. "How long have you been with us now, Mia?" 3 years? "Almost 4, she corrected, a knot forming in her stomach. "Was this a layoff disguised as good news?" "Right, 4 years. Never late, never miss a shift." Pete leaned forward. "I got a call yesterday from the owner. He's selling the cafe." The knot tightened. "Oh. When do we close?" "That's just it. We're not closing. The new owners want to keep everyone on." In fact, Pete slid a letter across the desk. "They specifically mentioned you." Mia picked up the letter, scanning its contents with confusion. "Health insurance, paid sick leave, tuition assistance program?" She looked up. "This can't be right." "Oh, it's right," Pete said, grinning now. "The new ownership group is implementing all these benefits plus a raise for everyone, and they want to know if you'd consider a promotion to assistant manager. More pay, flexible hours to work around your school schedule." Mia stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "Why me? And why now?" Pete shrugged. "All I know is the new owners reviewed our staff records and were impressed with yours. The changes take effect next month." He hesitated. "There's one more thing. A representative from the new owners wants to meet with the staff next week. Some community investment firm. They're especially interested in your input on improvements to the cafe." Mia left Pete's office in a daze, the letter clutched in her hand. Assistant manager with flexible hours and health insurance. It seemed too good to be true. With the raise and new position, she might actually be able to afford her grandmother's new medication. Later that evening, as Mia was helping her grandmother prepare for bed, the phone rang. An unfamiliar number with the university's area code. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Is this Mia Rodriguez?" a professional female voice asked. "Yes, that's me. This is Allison Parker from the Browning Nursing Scholarship Foundation. I'm calling because your name has come up in our selection process for this year's full scholarship awards." Mia sank onto the edge of the sofa. "There must be some mistake. I didn't apply for a Browning scholarship." The prestigious award was something students joked about, so competitive that most didn't bother trying. "You were nominated by one of your professors," Allison explained. "Your academic record and community service caught our attention. The scholarship would cover your remaining tuition and include a living stipend. We'd like you to come in for an interview next Tuesday." After hanging up, Mia sat motionless, trying to process what was happening. First the cafe changes, now this scholarship opportunity, both appearing out of nowhere in the span of 2 days. "Who was that?" her grandmother called from the bedroom. Mia went to the doorway. "I'm not sure yet, but I think things might be changing for us." Her grandmother studied her face. Good changes? I hope so, Mia replied. It's all happening, so fast it doesn't seem real. In his downtown office, James reviewed the notes from his meeting with the education foundation he had quietly funded for years. The Browning Nursing Scholarship had existed long before his involvement, but his recent suggestion that they consider Mia Rodriguez had been well received, especially after he doubled his annual contribution. The scholarship arrangements are in place, Elizabeth said, entering the office, and the cafe purchase is finalized. The employee benefits package will be announced tomorrow. James nodded, satisfied. What about her grandmother's medical situation? I've spoken with Dr. Patel, Elizabeth replied. She's been accepted into the patient advocacy program. All her medical expenses will be covered, including the specialist visits and new medication. Good, James said softly. Everything's happening. Without direct connection to us? Elizabeth nodded. As you requested. She'll never know we were involved. She tilted her head, studying her husband. You really don't want her to know it was you? James shook his head. That's not the point of this. I don't want her gratitude. I just want to remove the barriers keeping her from reaching her potential. And what happens next? Elizabeth asked. After the scholarship and the cafe changes? James smiled slightly. We wait and watch. This isn't about one grand gesture. It's about creating sustainable change in someone's life. The real test will be what she does with these opportunities. Elizabeth moved behind him, resting her hands on his shoulders. You know, when I married you, I thought I was getting a brilliant businessman. I had no idea you were secretly such a softie. Don't tell anyone, he murmured. It would ruin my reputation. As night fell over the city, Mia sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by scholarship information, cafe documents, and her grandmother's medical papers. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something dangerous. Hope. Not just the stubborn determination that had carried her this far, but genuine hope that the path ahead might not be as impossible as it had seemed. What she couldn't know was that across town, a billionaire and his wife were raising a toast to her future, a future they had quietly begun to reshape, inspired by a simple act of kindness in a cafe. The next 6 months brought changes to Mia's life that sometimes left her breathless. The scholarship covered all her remaining tuition and provided enough of a living stipend that she could cut back to working just at the cafe. With her new position as assistant manager came a schedule that worked around her classes, health, insurance that covered both her and her grandmother, and enough income to keep their small apartment without constantly worrying about rent. Her grandmother's health improved steadily under the care of specialists from the patient advocacy program. The new medication worked wonders, and for the first time in years, Maria Rodriguez could walk to the corner store without stopping to catch her breath. On a crisp autumn morning, Mia sat across from Dr. Patel during one of her grandmother's checkups, still trying to understand how they had qualified for such comprehensive care. I'm grateful, Mia said, but I still don't understand. These programs usually have waiting lists years long, Dr. Patel smiled. Sometimes the right case comes along at the right time. The advocacy program specifically looks for patients who have strong support systems but limited resources. Your grandmother fits that profile perfectly. She closed the medical file. The important thing is that she's responding well to treatment. Her heart function has improved 20% since starting the new medication. Mia nodded, but a part of her remained unsettled by their good fortune. In her experience, nothing came without strings attached, yet no one had asked anything of her beyond her continued hard work. Later that week, Mia prepared for the monthly meeting with the cafe's management consultant, a soft-spoken woman named Layla, who represented the new ownership group. These meetings had become a highlight. Layla actually listened to Mia's suggestions about improving workflow and customer experience, and many of her ideas had already been implemented. The customer loyalty program is showing great results, Layla said, reviewing the numbers on her tablet. Foot traffic is up 28% since we introduced it, and the community discount day you suggested has brought in a whole new demographic. Mia nodded, pride warming her chest. The senior center down the block now sends groups twice a week. They love the early bird special. Layla made a note. The owners are pleased, very pleased. Which brings me to our next topic. They've authorized me to discuss expansion plans with you. Expansion? They're considering purchasing the vacant space next door to create a small community area. Book clubs, local music, that sort of thing. Since it was largely your vision, they want you involved in the planning process. Layla studied Mia's face. This could mean another promotion for you, if you're interested. Mia hesitated. That's amazing. But I graduate in 7 months. I've always planned to work full-time as a nurse after that. We know, Layla said with a smile. The owners thought you might say that. They're prepared to offer you a flexible arrangement, part-time management with full benefits working around your nursing schedule. They value your input that much. As Mia walked home that evening, golden leaves crunching beneath her feet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening, as if invisible hands were smoothing her path forward. The random acts of good fortune felt too coordinated, too perfectly timed to her needs. Across town, in the penthouse office of Chen Technologies, James reviewed the quarterly report from his Special Projects Division, the discreet team that managed his personal philanthropic investments. The cafe expansion plans are underway, Daniel reported. Mia's response was positive but cautious. She's still focused on her nursing career, which aligns with our expectations. James nodded, pleased. And her academic progress? Exceptional. Her advisor reports she's in the top 5% of her class despite her work schedule. The clinical rotation supervisor specifically mentioned her compassion with patients. Elizabeth entered with a tray of tea, catching the end of the conversation. Are we still talking about our waitress? She asked with a knowing smile, setting down the tray. Nursing student, James corrected. Soon-to-be nurse. Elizabeth sat beside him, adding honey to her tea. It's been 6 months, James. Don't you think it's time we actually met her? Properly, I mean, not as customers at the cafe. James hesitated. That wasn't the point of this. I know, Elizabeth said gently, but I'm curious about her. Aren't you? Beyond the reports and surveillance photos? James stared out the window at the city skyline. The truth was, he thought about Mia often, wondered how she was experiencing these changes in her life, how she explained them to herself. Did she question her good fortune, or simply accept it as overdue justice? Perhaps, he conceded. But not yet. Let's wait until she graduates. By then, all the major pieces will be in place. Elizabeth studied her husband's profile. In their 15 years of marriage, she had watched him build an empire, negotiate billion-dollar deals, and outmaneuver countless competitors. But this project, this one young woman's future, had engaged him in a way she hadn't seen before. You've changed since that day at the cafe, she observed. James raised an eyebrow. How so? You ask different questions now. Before, when we discussed foundation grants, you wanted to know about metrics and outcomes. Now you ask about individuals, the people behind the numbers. James considered this. Perhaps I'm finally learning what you've been trying to teach me, for years, that sometimes the most meaningful impact happens one life at a time. The weeks passed, and winter wrapped the city in a blanket of snow and ice. At the University Medical Center, Mia hurried through her final clinical rotation, her nursing scrubs now as familiar as her cafe uniform had once been. Rodriguez, called out the charge nurse. Room 415 needs help with a patient transfer. Mia nodded and headed down the corridor, her comfortable shoes squeaking on the polished floor. She had grown to love these long shifts, moving from room to room, connecting with patients in their most vulnerable moments. The work was exhausting but fulfilling in a way that made her heart feel full. In room 415, an elderly man with kind eyes looked up from his bed. Are you my transfer committee? He joked. Mia smiled, checking his chart. Just part of it, Mr. Wilson. We're moving you to the step-down unit today. That's good news. Means you're improving. As she helped prepare him for the move, she chatted easily about his grandchildren, whose photos lined his bedside table. This was what she loved most, these small human connections. the privilege of caring for people when they needed it most. Later, that evening, her clinical supervisor pulled her aside. "Mia, do you have a minute?" Concerned, Mia followed her to a quiet corner of the nurses' station. "Is everything okay? Did I miss something with a patient?" The supervisor smiled. "Quite the opposite. I've received a request from Memorial Hospital about you. They're interested in offering you a position after graduation." Mia blinked in surprise. Memorial was the most prestigious hospital in the city, known for its excellent working conditions and competitive pay. New graduates rarely got their foot in the door. "That's unexpected," she managed. "How did they even know about me?" "Apparently, several of the doctors you've worked with during rotations have connections there. They've noticed your work." The supervisor handed her a card. "This is the contact information for their hiring director. They mentioned something about a new community care initiative that they think you'd be perfect for." That night, as Mia unlocked the door to her apartment, she found her grandmother sitting at the kitchen table with a pile of mail. "More good news," Maria announced, holding up an official-looking letter. "The building manager came by. Remember how they've been talking about renovations? They're offering us a newly renovated 2-bedroom unit at the same rent we pay now, as thanks for being long-term reliable tenants." Mia took the letter, scanning its contents with disbelief. The new apartment was on the first floor. Perfect for her grandmother's heart condition, and included updated appliances and accessibility features. "This doesn't make sense," Mia said, sinking into a chair. "We've only been reliable because of all these strange lucky breaks. The scholarship, your medical program, the cafe promotion, and now this? And today, Memorial Hospital apparently wants to hire me after graduation." Her grandmother studied her face. "You don't look happy about these blessings." "I am, but—" Mia struggled to articulate the feeling that had been growing for months. "Don't you find it weird? It's like winning the lottery over and over, except we never bought tickets." Maria reached across the table and took her granddaughter's hand. "Mija, sometimes life balances itself out. You've worked so hard for so long with little reward. Perhaps this is the universe evening the scales." Mia wished she could accept that simple explanation, but her practical nature rebelled against it. There was a pattern here, a deliberate one. Each opportunity built on the last, creating a stable foundation for their future. "I feel like someone's watching over us," she admitted. "Pulling strings." "And if they are?" her grandmother asked, gently. "Would that be so terrible?" Mia thought about it. "I guess it depends on why they're doing it, and what they expect in return. Perhaps they expect nothing. Perhaps they simply recognize something in you worth investing in." The idea was both comforting and unsettling. Mia had spent her life being fiercely independent, shouldering responsibilities beyond her years. The thought that someone might be helping her without her knowledge or consent felt like both a relief and a strange violation. As she helped her grandmother prepare for bed, Mia made a decision. After graduation, after she secured her nursing position, she would find out who was behind these changes in their lives. Not to confront them necessarily, but to understand, and perhaps to thank them. What she couldn't know was that in less than 3 months at her nursing school graduation ceremony, she would look out into the audience and spot a familiar face, the elegant woman from the cafe, whose simple need for a meal had somehow set all of this in motion. Graduation day arrived with perfect spring weather, sunshine spilling across the university campus, flowers blooming along every walkway. Mia stood in line with her fellow nursing graduates, the blue cap and gown feeling almost unreal after years of struggle and sacrifice. "Rodriguez, Mia," the dean called, and she walked across the stage, accepting her diploma with hands that trembled slightly. From her place at the podium, she could see her grandmother in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Maria had insisted on wearing her best dress for the occasion, and the neighborhood women had helped style her hair. She looked healthier than she had in years, her eyes bright with pride. As Mia paused for the official photograph, her gaze drifted across the audience and froze. 7 rows back on the aisle sat a familiar woman in an elegant cream suit. Elizabeth, the woman from the cafe, the one who had forgotten her wallet all those months ago. Their eyes met briefly, and Elizabeth smiled, giving a small nod of recognition. Beside her sat a distinguished-looking man with salt and pepper hair who was watching Mia with an expression of quiet satisfaction. Mia nearly stumbled as she left the stage, her mind racing. What were they doing here? How had they even known about her graduation? The pieces began falling into place. The cafe under new ownership, the scholarship appearing out of nowhere, her grandmother's medical program, the job offer from Memorial Hospital. After the ceremony, as families gathered on the lawn for photographs and celebrations, Mia scanned the crowd for the couple. She spotted them standing near a maple tree, slightly apart from the main crowd. "Grandma, there's someone I need to speak with," Mia said, squeezing her grandmother's hand. "I'll be right back." She made her way through the crowd, heart pounding. As she approached, Elizabeth turned and smiled. "Mia," she said warmly, as if they were old friends, "congratulations." "Thank you," Mia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm surprised to see you here. It's been a while since the cafe." Elizabeth glanced at her husband, who stepped forward and extended his hand. "James Chen," he introduced himself. "My wife has told me a lot about you." The name struck Mia like a physical blow. James Chen, founder of Chen Technologies, one of the richest men in the country. His face occasionally appeared in news articles about tech innovations or major charitable donations. "It was you," Mia said, the words barely audible. "All of it. The scholarship, the cafe, my grandmother's medical program. It was you." James nodded, not bothering to deny it. "Would you join us for coffee? I think we have a lot to talk about." They found a quiet corner in the university cafe away from the graduation crowds. Mia sat across from the couple, still clutching her diploma, trying to process the reality of her situation. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why me? Why all of this?" James studied her for a moment before answering. "Do you remember the day you met my wife at Café Lumière?" "Of course," Mia said. She forgot her wallet. "I was there," James explained. "I arrived early for our lunch date and watched the whole interaction from near the entrance. I saw how you treated Elizabeth with kindness and dignity, and later I saw you pay for her meal yourself." Mia shook her head, confused. "But that was nothing. Anyone would have done the same." "No," James said firmly. "They wouldn't. Most people wouldn't have given a second thought to a well-dressed woman who couldn't pay her bill. They might have called a manager or made her feel embarrassed. You did the opposite. You gave from what little you had, with no expectation of return. So this was all, what, a reward? A social experiment?" Mia couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Elizabeth reached across the table. "It wasn't like that. James was moved by what he saw, what it revealed about your character. He wanted to know more about you. So you investigated me," Mia said flatly. James nodded, unapologetic. "Yes, and what I found impressed me even more. A young woman working multiple jobs, caring for her grandmother, maintaining excellent grades, volunteering at a community clinic despite having barely enough time to sleep. That's just my life," Mia said. "Millions of people work just as hard." "True," James acknowledged. "But you were the one whose path crossed ours. And as I learned more about you, I began to see something clearly. Here was someone with extraordinary potential who faced obstacles that had nothing to do with her abilities or work ethic. So you decided to remove those obstacles," Mia concluded, the pieces clicking into place. "The scholarship, the cafe promotion, my grandmother's medical care, the apartment, even the job offer from Memorial." She looked up sharply. "That was you too, wasn't it?" James nodded. "I serve on their board. When I mentioned there was a promising nursing student they should consider, they were happy to review your clinical evaluations. The offer came because you earned it." Mia fell silent, emotions warring within her, gratitude mixed with discomfort, relief tangled with pride. "I don't know how to feel about this," she admitted finally. "Part of me wants to thank you for changing our lives. Another part feels I don't know. Manipulated somehow. Like I've been living in a story someone else was writing. I understand that, James said quietly, and I apologize for the secrecy, but I wanted to help in a way that preserved your dignity and independence, not as charity, but as an investment in your future. Why reveal yourselves now? Mia asked. Elizabeth smiled. That was my doing. I wanted to see you graduate to witness what you'd accomplished. James was content to remain anonymous forever. What happens now? Mia asked, the question that had been weighing on her since she recognized Elizabeth in the audience. Nothing changes, James assured her. The scholarship is yours. The job at Memorial is yours based on merit. Your grandmother's medical care will continue. The cafe position remains available if you want it. None of this comes with strings attached. Mia studied the man across from her, this billionaire who had secretly rearranged her life. She had imagined many scenarios for this moment, but the reality was both simpler and more complex than she had anticipated. I need time to process all this, she said finally. Of course, Elizabeth replied. Take all the time you need. As they prepared to leave, James hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope. Before we go, I wanted to give you this. It's not another arrangement or surprise, just an offer if you're interested. Mia accepted the envelope cautiously. What is it? I've started a foundation focused on supporting working students in healthcare fields, James explained. People with circumstances similar to yours. We're looking for someone to help guide the program, someone who understands firsthand the challenges these students face. The position could work around your nursing schedule. Mia stared at the envelope. You want me to work for your foundation? I want you to help shape it, James corrected. Your perspective would be invaluable, but it's entirely your choice and there's no rush to decide. After they left, Mia rejoined her grandmother, who was chatting with her classmates' families. The weight of the envelope in her pocket felt significant, like a key to a door she hadn't known existed. Who were those people? Her grandmother asked as they walked slowly toward the bus stop. The ones responsible for all the good things that have been happening to us, Mia replied, still processing the revelation. Her grandmother nodded, unsurprised. I told you someone was looking out for us. What will you do now? Mia thought about it as they waited for the bus. The past year had transformed their lives in ways she could never have imagined. The constant stress of financial insecurity had lifted, allowing her to focus on her studies and her grandmother's health. For the first time, she could see a future beyond the next bill payment, the next shift, the next exam. I'm not sure, she admitted. Part of me wants to politely thank them and walk away, prove I can make it on my own. But another part recognizes that accepting help doesn't make me weak. Maybe it takes more strength to accept a hand up than to keep struggling alone out of pride. Her grandmother squeezed her arm. There's a difference between charity and investment, Mija. This man saw something in you worth investing in. The question is, what will you do with that investment? 2 weeks later, Mia stood outside the gleaming downtown office building that housed the Chen Foundation. Her nursing scrubs were tucked in her bag. She had just finished her morning shift at Memorial Hospital, where she was already earning a reputation for exceptional patient care. The receptionist smiled as she approached. Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Chen is expecting you. In the elegant conference room, James stood to greet her. Thank you for coming. Have you had a chance to consider my offer? Mia nodded, setting her own envelope on the table. I have, and I've made some notes about how I think the foundation could be structured to truly help students like me. James raised an eyebrow, intrigued. I'd like to hear your thoughts. First, Mia began, her confidence growing. As she spoke, the support needs to be comprehensive. Tuition alone isn't enough when students are worried about housing, childcare, or family medical expenses. Second, there should be mentorship, connecting students with professionals in their field. And third, she took a deep breath, the foundation should consider an employee ownership component for any businesses it acquires, like you did with the cafe. A slow smile spread across James's face. You've given this a lot of thought. I have, Mia acknowledged. Because if I'm going to be part of this, I want to make sure it truly changes lives, not just eases circumstances temporarily. So you're accepting the position? On one condition, Mia said, meeting his gaze steadily. That you'll let me pay forward what you've done for me. Not by paying you back, but by helping shape this foundation into something that can do for others what you did for me. James extended his hand. I think that can be arranged. 3 years later, the Chen Rodriguez Healthcare Scholars Program had helped over 100 students complete their education. The cafe, now partially owned by its employees through an innovative program, had become a community hub and model business. And Mia, who still worked 3 shifts a week as a nurse because she couldn't imagine giving up patient care, had found her voice as an advocate for working students and healthcare accessibility. On the anniversary of her graduation, she met James and Elizabeth for lunch, a tradition they had established. As they sat at a corner table, James raised his glass in a toast. To kindness, he said simply, and its unexpected returns. Mia smiled as she raised her own glass. The journey that had begun with a simple act of compassion in a cafe had come full circle, transforming not just her life, but the lives of many others. And, perhaps most surprisingly, it had transformed James Chen as well, the billionaire who had learned that true wealth could be measured in the lives touched rather than the fortunes amassed. To kindness, she agreed, and to the courage to accept it when it's offered.